my formal welcome. And as I always do, I surrender what we're working on to God. So we allow him to work through us all here tonight. And then a few words from God before we get started. You have all gathered here in love. Be that love now and always. When you come from love, all that is yours will be. Count your blessings, for they are far more enormous than you realize. You have all come here on a journey. Celebrate that journey, regardless of how arduous at times. Be mindful of your every word and deed, because within them carries the power of creation. They are never void of outcomes. And so we begin.
Pose.
And if everybody can mute themselves, I thought I did that beforehand, so. Or Cheryl, please mute everybody. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a brief history. And I'm going to start with a very short story of myself. I was born awake, and I was also born with a curse that every lifetime I'd come back that Satan would know who I was. So I've been dealing with darkness right from the beginning. And Lucifer was also at my crib when I was an infant, and I saw my first battle between Lucifer and Michael at that point. Lucifer was there to read me. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for us, that Michael came right away and kind of booted him out. But literally, I was told 96.6% of my life has been barraged by darkness. So this has been my life calling. And unfortunately, I've had a bird's eye view of all of it up close and personal. And when I was a child, I could see angels, demons, ghosts, and aliens, and knew that reincarnation existed, that this lifetime would be my last one. And it was also going to be, I wouldn't die, and it was also going to be the end of the world as we know it. Now, that's a lot for a kid. And I knew that's why I was here. What I was going to be doing with that, I had no idea. But fast forward to 2004, Archangel Michael appeared to me and asked me to join him in a healing practice and also to write his book. If you're not familiar with Michael, and I'm sure all of you are at this point, he protects all of God and his creation. And when he says he was depicted by sword and shield, they all serve a purpose. And at that time, he gave me a sword and a shield and kind of suited me up for this job, still not having any idea what I was in for. But shortly thereafter, I was standing, I'm still in New Jersey at this point, on my balcony, and a demon appeared before me. Michael was to my right, and the demon just was right in front of me. And finally, Michael was doing nothing. I got rid of the demon and then yelled at Michael, "Isn't that your job?" So obviously later I realized, well, he was showing me that I had the power within me to get rid of demons, and that turned out to be my specialty. So with that in mind, we started our practice, but we also, he dictated this book, Wisdom of the Guardian, to me, which I know a number of you have and have read, and I so appreciate that. But before I had to go out with that book, I had to clear at least 8 lifetimes of persecution, my own past lives. And it turned out to be a specialty I've had over the years. And it's really one of the things that holds back many light workers is they have past lives of persecution. I clear them all the time for people. And they've become more confident, clear, and on purpose, and they can go out and make more money. So clearing lifetimes of persecution is a huge benefit for anybody in any kind of a business, really, but in light workers in particular, because many of them were healers in other lifetimes or had gifts. They are hesitant to bring them out more fully or to share about them. And believe me, if I hadn't gotten rid of numerous lifetimes of persecution for myself, I couldn't be even doing this this talk. I couldn't be in public speaking about how this really this work or specifically controversial subjects. Now, everything about tonight is controversial to a degree because we're going to be sharing significant history, and this history is written in the Bible, and yet it's not understood in the Bible. And if you're attached to the Bible and the way it's supposed to look in the Bible or turn out in the Bible, you're going to have issue with me, which many people do. But if you're also attached to that, you're going to miss out on some of the benefit that we are able to bring forward now. And this is where people often stay stuck. And sometimes it's just subconsciously, they're still stuck in the past. They're clinging to old ideas and what they think is going to be expected. So if you can give up your expectations and be open to what God has in store for you now, it'll be a phenomenal opportunity for everyone's growth and potential. So over the years, working with Michael, we were ending up clearing a lot of our history, the history of the world, a lot of the history in the Bible, many biblical stories, many biblical characters. And that seemed to go on for a long time. But as many of you knew, 2012 was going to be a significant year. So by 2012, I had been doing this work for many years with Michael, had many harrowing experiences, dealt with a lot of darkness, dealt with clearing torture all day, clearing demons all day, and they could literally go through a phone and go for my jugular. So it wasn't pretty. A lot of times I really lived in isolation because it was dangerous when I was doing this work. And I couldn't tell anybody who I was or what I was doing because it would compromise both them and myself and also this mission. So by the time we got to 2012, though, I was pretty seasoned in dealing with darkness, but I had no idea what I was up for next. And in the fall of 2012, I was guided to go out to Los Angeles with a one-way ticket. And I did that after double checking with some of my colleagues as to why, because it was such an urge. And I'm thinking that's so unusual, although I lived 10 years there, to just up and go. And one of my angelic channels said, you're going to meet somebody that's going to change your life. And so I went, and I highly recommend anybody that channels to always check with others, because you can easily have your ego involved. And also, before it was really where darkness could also interfere with your channels, not so much anymore because we've cleared so much darkness. But I went out to LA in 2012, and there I went to a conference, and as soon as I heard this man's name mentioned at a conference, I knew that was who I was supposed to meet. And I said, God, well, if you want me to meet this man, you're just going to have to set it up. And a friend of mine comes out to me and says, you know, this guy's in the hall. I got up, went out to the hall, and he immediately invited us both to dinner. And we went to this business dinner conference room in the hotel. And what was so funny about it, I came in with my friend, I put my pocketbook down, left the room, came back, and the room was full. My pocketbook had been moved from the seat I chose next to my friend, and the only seat in the house was next to the man. So I picked up my purse and went down and sat next to him. I had no idea what to talk to him about. And I said, well, you know, the angels told me I was going to come out and meet you, and you were going to help me with something. And I'm going, you know, still having no clue on who he was or what this was all about. So we left that dinner meeting, and my girlfriend, who's more, I don't know how you want to say it. She's a channel who she can read people right in the moment. I read people when I pick up the telephone, I put my hat on for a spiritual healing session, I become an empath, and I can get all sorts of information. When I'm not doing that, I'm just the girl next door. But she read this guy, and she knew that, in fact, this guy was carrying the soul of Lucifer, which kind of blew me away. But I always like double checking things. I asked, and then I asked my angelic channel back in New York to confirm, and she says, yes, that was the truth. So this gentleman who was a very wealthy business coach was having a training the following weekend. So I enrolled in that. During the week, it was a Wednesday, and I was in meditation. And instead of getting the meditation from God to me, it was, "Dear so-and-so," the man's name. And at that point, he wrote a letter through me addressing Lucifer. Now you can see that letter on my website, and it's also in Clear Your Past and Change Your Future. The following weekend, I went up to him and I said, "Look, I got a letter. I want to talk to you for a few minutes." We made an appointment on Sunday, and all weekend I was concerned about when I was going to sit down with him and deliver that letter to him. That night, I was questioning above, saying, did he get the letter? You know, did he read it? And I got yes. He read it. He looked at it for 20 minutes, shared it with other people. And they said he does things like that. Like he looks at things for 20 seconds and throws them away because people give him stuff all the time. So I said, did he turn to the light? And they go, no. But anyway, I went to his party and acted as if nothing happened. And then left for the evening and still kept checking on him. Did he turn to the light? And I got no. And then Michael said to me one day, he says, I want you to go to Las Vegas. This guy is giving another presentation. I want you to go then, and you're going to help release a lot of people from hell and help write the last chapter of the first book of life. Now, if you're not familiar with the book of life, I'll read that to you. And it lists every man, woman, or child who ever existed in this universe. It elaborates on each as to their spiritual state. Each is given a role and a responsibility for each one of their existences. They were created with a purpose in mind. There are a check and balances that go along with each one's life. Each one has certain goals in mind for their existence that lifetime. When they achieve their stated goal, they will get a check. If they miss that goal, there will be an evaluation as to the state of that goal. All learn from those checks and balances. There is always a reason for being. Nothing is arbitrary. So Michael was explaining what this book was. He showed me that last book, and then he showed me there was already one started for this new age. So we were sitting in that audience of that conference, and at 12:12:12, now I don't know if you can see this, but I was wearing this particular watch, and I was wearing this the entire trip, and just before 12, I don't know if you can see it, on that date, which was 12:12:12. So just before 12 on 12/12/12, Michael said, the last chapter has been written, the book has been closed, and this watch stopped. And I've changed batteries and I've never been able to get it to go again. So that was a significant piece in that particular time. And after that event, I went back to New Jersey, and I felt like first of all, I was going to celebrate the holidays and then get back into my life there, figuring it's 2012. This was a momentous occasion, and now we were done. Like my work was fulfilled. So I've thought that many times, and usually I was wrong because they would re-up me for something else. So I said yesterday, I think I'm done too. So we'll see. That'll probably last about 3 days, and then I'll be given another assignment. But anyway, on this occasion, we finished this project, and I went back into private practice until Holy Week 2013, which was another one that was rather momentous. Slowly but surely, people were calling me, and they were saying, God said I had to work with you, or I just feel like I'm inspired. Now's the time to work with you, or Michael said I had to work with you, or I just felt compelled to work. It was so common, really, the 2 weeks right before Easter that year, that you couldn't have known or not known that it was all set up, and I had nothing to do with this. It was nothing about business. It was all God orchestrated. But the most significant thing started was Passover, Holy Week, and Monday. And the first woman who called me that day, we ended up talking about martyrdom. And martyrdom was a subject we had to clear, and the story of Abraham and Isaac. And the significance of that was it came out that Satan was the one who had inspired Abraham to sacrifice his son. And the significance about that was, well, several things. First, most of us have been taught that God asked him to do that, and that was his test. God said personally he doesn't have to test them because he knew his heart. But it was a pagan society at the time, and sacrifice was a big thing of the day. But the other thing that was significant is Abraham may have been the only one that was channeling God at the time. And anytime you can channel anybody, you can channel anybody. So in other words, you can channel God, you can channel darkness. It doesn't matter. The problem is nobody was taught to really discern, and he may not have realized that Satan could pose as God, because I've seen that happen before in my own life, where a colleague said that it was God speaking through her, and it was really Satan or Lucifer. So I also want to address that. That's not going to really happen so much anymore either, because we've cleared so much of the darkness over the years, and that was really what our specialty was, is clearing the darkness. And we needed to do that in order to set people free from those types of dynamics, and also the fact that they were often undermining your best efforts. So we started off the day with that. I can't remember exactly what happened on Tuesday. Tuesday is usually my big client day, so I was on the phone with a number of clients that day, but Wednesday was the next specific day. Michael started out the day telling me, like, the history of the world. And I'm going, oh my God, this is like answering everything. And then he told me to call one particular person and ask him to do a half-hour session with me that night. And I called him up, and he was agreeable. And I started to tell him at night that I said, oh my God, you're not going to believe what Michael said this morning. And I wanted to repeat it, and then I couldn't remember a thing. I asked Michael later, I said, I can't remember anything you said. And he goes, I told you in another dimension, you left it there. And I'm like, oh my God. I said, I wish I took good notes. So, you know, it's incredible, some of the things that happened that week, but I can remember what happened next, because then I got shushed. And I'm going, okay, like, all right, we got to start this clearing. And instead of the usual type of clearing I did, all I was doing was reporting to the news to the individual on the phone with me. And what I saw was, and I still wish I could find somebody to actually paint this. So I see the world, and I see a hole being drilled into the center of the earth, and then like a straw being placed in the center of the earth. And then the 12 tribes of Israel surrounded the earth. And then above them was a funnel of angels that looked like literally a very tight-knit funnel. And then this liquid light was poured into the center of that straw into the earth. And then it sort of went through the straw, came up around the outside of the straw, and it just came up, and this liquid light ended up pouring around the globe, and the darkness went spewing up the funnel of the angels. So the angels were surrounding everyone, so none of that darkness was contaminating anything else. It was the most epic experience so far. I mean, I've seen actually so many of them, but this was like one of those, I want to see a painting of it. It was an extraordinary experience, and I'll never forget it. So after that call, I was guided, okay, that was it. We got off the phone. The next morning I got up and I got to have my first client. And then that client, like a farmer appears with a sapling in his hand, and he hands it to me, and it represented the new tree of life. Now, the new tree of life is very significant because it's energetic and it's given to all now. And as a participant of tonight, you're all getting the new tree of life within. And I'll elaborate a little bit more on just that. So, woo-hoo! So the new tree of life is a specialized energetic gift from God. It is given to those who have been willing to look upon themselves and take responsibility for their own lives and outcomes. Ultimately, they must also be willing to connect to God to receive its benefits. The gift is given very specifically. The energetic properties of this are strictly dependent on the individual who receives it, as well as how they receive it. If they receive it gratefully and take it within their heart, joyously, they have accepted the gift and can benefit from it when they connect to God. It will not provide access to all that is without the connection to God. God is at the helm, God is at the root. Without the connection to God, it does nothing. With the connection to God, it does more than you can imagine. That was from Archangel Michael. The process that was used or is used in sharing that tree of life is the statement, I am aligned with the divine within my heart to access all there is. And I can share that with you. It's also on my blog. So that was a significant part in the morning. The afternoon, we had to clear suffering, and someone else was on the phone with me. And before we got started, I was asked to get an apple, and I had no idea where we were going with this. And I ended up channeling, well, first we cleared with Adam and Eve and the whole story of the beginning of time, and channeled Eve for 25 minutes. And the most significant thing I got from that was I turned away from God once. How many times have you? And I remember having a conversation with Jesus years ago about this situation. And he goes, it happened in seconds. Temptation happened in seconds. And at the time when the serpent came through, it just like, it was so quick. So it's not like she even weighed the whole idea. It was like, you know, you can get swayed so easily. So I thought this was wonderful when Jesus was responding to this comment. When people look outside of themselves to others for answers, they are void within. When void within, they will be swayed by anything that makes sense at the time. Serving and satisfying the ego is simple. It doesn't take much more than a good argument. So I know I've turned away from God many times. I've thought I knew better. And that's what I have found has been the underlying cause of all problems on earth and in heaven, is when anyone is arrogantly thinking they know better than God. And that's what I've had to clear when clearing humanity's karma and the history of the world and the cause of darkness on the planet. It usually stems from arrogance in some regard. So back to that particular Thursday, however, the next thing we had to do was clear with the crucifixion. And then God forgave all in regards to the crucifixion. And also he said the rift between the Jews and the Christians was healed that day. There's much more that goes into all of this than I'm going to elaborate tonight, because I really want to give you a highlight of the work, how we got here, and then take it a little bit farther not only to opening up heaven on earth, but where we are today. But all of this karma had to be cleared. All of these things had to be forgiven. And over the years, that's all we've been doing, is clearing major events that have been undermining you and where we are and where we can go in the world at this moment. So we finished Thursday, and then on Friday, I was guided to just do one session. One person was on the line, and we cleared serpent energy. I opened the session, and all I saw was black. Saw nothing else. We were guided not to speak. When the session was over, I just closed the phone, and that was it. It was the most uneventful experience probably of all my years, because I saw nothing, but I didn't really need to, and I was grateful for that, because you don't always want to see what I've been able to see through this work. So that was done. Now, just to backtrack a little bit, now this was Good Friday. The day before, I was also guided by Michael to invite a particular couple to join me who was part of this work. She was on the phone with me for this, and he was on the phone with me for oppression in particular. And they were invited to meet me at, now some of you will know this because some of you are from New Jersey, the Paramus Mall where Century 21 was, and Whole Foods. So I reached out and I said, would you like to join me? And I was told to do two things. First, I was told that he and I were supposed to buy watches. We could look for the watches before noon, but we couldn't pay for them until afternoon. She was guided to go to Whole Foods and buy apple cider, water, a few glasses, and find us a table. So he and I met. We narrowed in on these watches quickly. This is still one of my favorite watches, and I love it. And it was so interesting. The black watch never worked anymore, but now I've got a white one with a little bit of black on. So that's, I consider my heaven on earth watch. So as I've learned over the years, 12 is the number of spiritual completion. So here we are on March 30th, 2013. At 12, he and I were online, bought our watches. We met his wife at Whole Foods, which was just down the hall. We sat down and we had a toast. And this is what the toast was: aligned with the divine within your own heart to access all there is. The same toast now that sort of is aligned with the tree of life. But in this case, we were toasting with apple cider and water, which rebalances the masculine and the feminine. And this is tying in again to the Adam and Eve story. So here we had been given a new beginning. So at 12:12 on March 30th, this is what we toasted. Now the significance of that, well, first of all, let me finish. So we chit-chatted a while and we left, and then I walked out into the parking lot and I saw streams of light coming down, and it looked like the big, like 3-inch streamers, and it was just coming down. And then Michael said, today is the first day of heaven on earth. And I was just taken back by this, and then called my friends immediately. But that night, what was so significant was the woman calls me and says, she was guided to look up the numbers and add them up. And March 30th, 2013 added to a 12. So again, at 12:12:12, now I have a new watch. This is a new beginning. And this is now the opening of heaven on earth, which is an extraordinary day. Didn't understand it fully, but I was in awe of the whole experience. I was like, wow. So here we are 8 years later, and still a lot of people don't know any more than I did at that time, because it's still a foreign concept to really a lot of people. So back to the actual history though, the next day was Easter. Michael said the earth ascended. And then on Monday, which was the first, God announced, I now own the world. Now, understand this, that God is everything, but the God of the light, where he now gets to be empowered and make the difference necessary, because the darkness wasn't in control anymore. This was huge. So this was really just a beginning. Now, that month, I was invited by the gentleman who also was the same one that was carrying the soul of Lucifer. So he had another event, but this time it was in New York. I was guided to go again. But the unique thing about this is, after that event, the next morning, Michael announced that the rift between he and Lucifer was healed. And then Lucifer was being returned to the light for processing. So this was a momentous occasion. And all of this was really being addressed because we were addressing the cause of darkness and shifting the back end of what was occurring on the earth that caused the world to be so dark. So now I think my job is over again. I'm thinking, okay, we've had another momentous experience and this should be done. But then in August, there was a major event where we cleared a lot of darkness, and then every soul on the planet had the choice of choosing the light or darkness. Now, I don't know exactly how that played into the whole thing, because I think there were stages where they had to choose on a particular level if they were going to choose a light, or they're going to stay in the dark. Anyway, at that particular time, that was August 4th. Everyone made their soul decision. And then Jesus came to me through somebody else and said, they've located Satan in Afghanistan, and we're going to have a battle with him on Saturday. Like, it was going to be a surprise battle at noon. And I was suited up and went into session mode that day. And at that point, Satan was extinguished. Now, there was 3 things that normally would happen when I was dealing with fallen angels or demons or whatever in a session. And Michael would and others would take them to the light, like they couldn't be possessing people anymore. They were given several choices. They could turn to the light and be reprocessed, which is what Lucifer did. Satan was turned out to be extinguished, and that means just they go back into light without a personality. And then the other was they'd go into a holding tank. Now, what I've since learned is that even though Satan would leave, or he was gone and absorbed into light at that point, because of so many realities and so many dimensions and so many connections to others, that his personality still existed and was attached and had contracts with countless individuals. So I didn't understand those dynamics at the time, but since then had to continue to clear darkness. But what was so fascinating to me at the time, I'm thinking, again, I'm done. And then God goes and makes some announcements, which included one, that things would be getting darker out there. And I'm like, wait a minute, I just cleared all this darkness. Now, it reminded me of not the current Wonder Woman movie, but the one before that, where she takes out the German soldier, military leaders, and then still sees the German army marching, and she's like crushed. And I cried in the middle of the theater, because I can relate to that, because you have these major battles with individuals that were undermining all, and you think you would be done, but the memo didn't get out to everyone else. And what I did find out when the memo did get out, there was a lot of fallen angels that were really upset with Lucifer that he went back to the light, and they had issues with him. So things aren't just cut and dry like you would hope. Let me just take a sip of water. I'm trying to rush through a lot of information, as you can tell. So anyway, you've seen it got darker out there. In 26, I think it was 2016, on August 29th, God said 3D and 5D split and the time of tribulation began. He told me the trumpets sounded. I didn't hear them personally. But this was going to start tribulation. Now, tribulation was going to, according to the Bible, was going to go 7 years. And if you looked at it, basically, it included where we left off with Satan, and now it was about 7 years anyway. He didn't know when it was going to end. There was nothing written in stone because he wanted to see how things turned out with people and where people were at. And the whole idea of tribulation was, now this is the significant piece. It is the time of trial and error. It's walk alone or align with God. When you're aligned at the highest level, doors open. Align with the intellect and ego, and you struggle. Seek truth from within. You experience firsthand which works better. Surrender to the source for highest possibility. Doomsday is when the ego leads to darkness. The surrendering to the source leads you to light. You get to witness at this time which works better and choose. So that's what's been the whole thing, is this period of time, during this time of trial and tribulation, you've gotten to see more of the underbelly of what's going on behind the scenes. It's all coming to the top, and you get to look and say, well, wait a minute, I don't like that. That's not acceptable. I'm going to choose the light. And more people have turned to God and the light because of seeing all the darkness that they've witnessed. Now, people sometimes think this is darker than it's ever been. This is lighter than it's ever been. And I'll explain that a little later. But the possibility that exists is the earlier you align with God, the less trial, the less tribulation. If you are not aligned to ego and darkness, you have nothing to fear. So I find that most people's problem today is their fear. If they let go of their fear, they wouldn't have as much of a problem. When you can surrender to God, God can work through you to solve any issue. And it's the unhealed emotions within, unfortunately, that block that complete surrender. So you also, so anyway, up until that point, by the way, this second book was really about Michael's and my work. I never got it into paper. I still have another edit that I was going to do, but ended up clearing behind the scenes world work since then. So this got shoved, but it's still on Kindle for 99 cents if you want to read what I just told you in a more in-depth manner with a lot of the channeled messages from God, Michael, Jesus, and whomever. So where we are now is what they call the apocalypse, which is uncovering, disclosure, or revelation of something important that has been hidden. So you're hearing a lot of things that have been hidden. A lot of stories that have been unfolding that are unnerving to people, but they are what's been hidden behind the scenes. That's the apocalypse. That's what you've all been experiencing, is you're witnessing all this revelation. Now, all of this behind the scenes world work that I've been doing all these years has been cleaning up all the crap that you probably read about on television. And what you're hearing about, we're cleaning up the darkness that was behind it, undermining it in you. So the back end is a lot clearer than you can ever imagine. there aren't the beings in the background that have been undermining you. And one of the reasons why our focus has been clearing demons is we want to wake people up, but we couldn't wake everybody up and then have you see a room full of demons. You don't want to see what I've been able to see. So we were clearing all of that out so you can see better and see. You'd rather see God and angels and good things. You don't want to see what I've been able to see with demons. So anyway, we've been clearing all that out. We've been clearing the beings in the background that have been wreaking havoc on the world by working through world leaders and others of note. And we've been clearing a lot of darkness that has been within those individuals, including the contracts they have with darkness. And it's been a major cleanup job. Now, the good news about all of that is that we finally got to a point where, although over the years, we've been clearing the grid, the grid of consciousness and the grid of the Christ grid, we had the formal birth of the Christ consciousness on earth as of March 1st. This was the huge turning point that we've been all waiting for. The Christ consciousness is a very high vibration of where one meets with their creator in a whole new dynamic and interchange. You move from the idea of oneness to an experience of oneness. Your realization of who you are and your role in life becomes significant. So it's a whole other level of awareness. And when you can reach to that Christ consciousness, you experience the world in a whole new way. And now that's available for everyone. And now it's a personal opportunity for everyone to choose to move in that direction. So now we're here and we have heaven on earth available. Heaven on earth is found in 5D. And we've been coming out of the 3D, the third dimension reality. Now, the third dimension is obviously you've got 3D, you've got walls and the physicality, but now you're moving into 5D consciousness where it's the consciousness of heaven. Now, heaven and hell are both levels of consciousness. They're not necessarily locations, they're consciousness. So you've got earth where we've had the 3D experience of duality. We're moving out of that duality into 5D where we can experience heaven on earth. Now there's levels within 5D. You can be in 5D and not be in heaven on earth. So the concept though of heaven on earth is you want to have the qualities of heaven where you can connect with God, angels, ascended masters, and your deceased relatives with more ease and experience a life of more ease overall, joy, love, peace, balance, freedom, and abundance. That should be available for all. It shouldn't be a place of the win-lose, greed should be going away. Everyone should be able to have more and more of everything, but not necessarily the dramatic differences. You know, you've got the poverty on one end and the abundance on the other. It's going to be more fair, balanced. So we're going to be moving out of what we keep clearing lately of a lot of the 80s concepts, you know, where there was just gluttony and there was a lot of excitement and abundance, but there was also a lot of darkness. And that was like kind of like the last era of that. And then since then, it's been shifting. So how do you experience heaven on earth? One, pure in heart. When you have a pure heart, it makes all the difference in the world. And that's where you're really judged by God, is the purity of your heart. So what do you want to do in alignment with that and in an effort to ascend but surrender to God. Align with the divine within your heart to access all there is. So again, it's the tree of life, but it's also an intention. You want to intend to align with the divine within your heart to access all there is. All the magic happens through your heart. Connecting to God is through your heart. You want to live from your heart rather than your head, and come from a place of love. Let go of fear. Fear is your biggest problem. And I can't say that strongly enough. If you just focus on letting go of your fear and choosing love, it'll make all the difference in the world. Live in the moment and follow that divine inspiration. Remain detached from drama, the news, etc. Raise your vibration and work toward Christ consciousness, and let go of anything that brings imbalance. Return and maintain a place of peace. And peace always starts from within. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. Focus on bringing peace within. Forgive from your heart quickly and completely, and that includes yourself. Give up judgment of self and others, and forgive self and others. Know you are one with all that exists. And the challenges that we are seeing, people are still carrying and operating from 3D programming. It's so embedded. A lot of the religious teachings or the fear of God is something that I'm continually clearing for people so they can connect to God and be able to talk directly to God himself. You manifest everything, good and bad, faster in 5D. So if you've got fearful thoughts, you are going to manifest your fearful thoughts quicker. If you have happy thoughts, good thoughts, you're going to manifest those faster. So make sure you're choosing wisely. Also dealing with those that are still in 3D and strong mentality that's attached to the world of duality, it gets challenging when you're operating with those people. I don't operate with those people often because it would undermine me and my work, so I stay away from that. Linear thinking is the other issue where you can shift things on a dime in 5D. God can shift things on a dime in 5D. This idea of linear thinking, and if you're attached to that, can hold you in the past. Anything about the past life, past experiences, whether it's past life or just yesterday, and any of those beliefs can hold you back. I work directly with God. God will tell us stuff, and then it'll be different the next week. It's not that it's just more information, it's deeper information, it's what you can handle on one day, and then the world shifts and realities shift, and it can change everything there also. So learning to be flexible and not hang your hat on ideas is significant. And as we're going into a little later of this presentation where we're talking about revelation, you'll understand a little bit better where I'm talking about people often get stuck now and are blocking their own benefit. There are 5D possibilities that are available to those who ascend and raise their vibration to them. No aging, disease, or death. Now, I remember when I was little and I was told I wouldn't die this lifetime, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm just going to ascend and move on. Later, I thought, oh, maybe that meant I wasn't going to die in my work, which I was grateful that didn't happen either, because Michael told me I could have died a number of times in my work, but I'm still here and in here, and the rest remains to be seen. I can travel to heaven now and come back and forth and whatnot, but my body is still here. So who knows how that's going to really look, but the possibilities for that exist. So just be open to that. Abundance, again, more available to all. You really should have your ideal location, relationships, and work. And interaction with those in heaven is a lot easier. Now, many of you have heard of the Rainbow Bridge. The Rainbow Bridge is the state of consciousness that allows one pure of heart to ascend to the highest level available on earth at this time. And during our work, we often took individuals across that bridge. And it was really interesting how guilt sometimes would stand in someone's way, allowing them to ascend to the highest possibilities available to them at that time. And guilt often holds people back. So again, another concept to let go of is guilt. Let go of guilt. You can repent to God anytime, surrender anything to God so he can heal it. And of course, that's what we do in our work privately and in our group calls. But you really want to let go of guilt, because guilt is one of those blocks to being able to channel God directly. So all along, we've been helping clearing the darkness, helping bring people, we've been helping to awaken people. We've been doing a lot of Kundalini rising, which is helping people awaken, ascend. But this year turned out to be momentous. And as I said, we had the Christ consciousness open. And we also had two significant things that those of you who have been raised in religion or are familiar with the book of Revelation, which talks about this period of time. If you read it, it's hard to read as far as I'm concerned. A lot of the books of the Bible are hard to read because they're written so convoluted. They're not in our necessarily native vernacular. So the stories were for that period of time, and they've been translated, they've been altered, and all sorts of things. But Revelation is really about prophecy for this period of time. Having been a prophet, I know how you can visualize things, see them, interpret them, state them, and see them happen, and it didn't look exactly how you saw it, but it was exactly the same story. And if you understood it, you knew that that's what happened. Like when I saw the world split between 3D and 5D, I saw two worlds interchange like this, go like this. When it actually happened, I saw nothing. I just heard God talk about it. Same thing happened though. But one was a vision, one was given to me in a vision, one was given to me audibly. So you don't always hang your hat on the stuff, you just understand it from a concept. So a couple of the things that were written about in Revelations was seventh seal and also the Lion of Judah. And they're written about, I'm not even going to get into the quotes because it's really not necessary, but on February 12th, that's what happened. And there's significance here that I want to bring up. This is significant historically. This was announcing the Christ consciousness. Now, I probably should have had the other slide up here because it was, in date order. But understand that the significance of this is written about in the Bible. It was prophesied in the Bible, but the way it played out looked nothing like it. It happened. What it looked like in the back end, who knows? But this is what happened. This is what God said. This is what we had to clear. This is what we brought forth. And it was a big deal. But it all was about the second coming. So this is considered the second coming. Now, it doesn't look like what a lot of people are anticipating. You're not going to see Jesus come out of the clouds. I've seen Jesus come out of the clouds before. I mean, I've seen him descend through my ceiling. I've just seen him walk through the door, that's over the years. But this is considered the second coming. Those that are waiting for the second coming to look a certain way are going to be disappointed. Understand this, that everything that was being mentioned in Revelations is occurring, has occurred, or was completed yesterday. And that is what's really important to understand. It's like you can't be attached to what you think expectation is. It's holding people up. This is the time of ascension. Today is a major ascension day. And if people are going to say, I'm not going to ascend because I'm waiting for Jesus to come out of the clouds, they're going to be sitting around waiting for a long time. So it's about being fluid, being open, being understanding that things aren't necessarily as they have been perceived by someone and shared by others and drawn to conclusions by people. You have to be open to experience life as it appears. So, Revelation is the beginning to the end of the world as we have known it. And now for a new beginning for all who wish to embrace love. And that's the real significance, is the return to love. Now, I just want to say something that is significant because this is what occurred yesterday. And this goes along with the Bible prophecy of what was going to happen. So you have the Christ consciousness, and then you have the seventh seal, and then you have the four headless horsemen, and then you have these seven angels, and you have all this trial and tribulation again, and then you have Satan gone for 1,000,000 years, and then a millennia, and then he's back again. So instead of just allowing that to happen or perceiving that, we have to clear the energy of that. So we cleared all that. We cleared the Antichrist. We cleared the loop that was going to cause Satan to come back in a millennia. And we set everything free of that. So that's no longer a concern. I woke up this morning, it was like, for the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't have the Antichrist nipping at my heels. I felt like I had a fighting chance to have peace in my life, because it's not easy when you're always fighting darkness. So this was huge. I could feel the difference today, but that's what happened yesterday. And God said that that was a red letter day. So I just want to give you a little bit of a reading of what God said about what the future holds. The future is a bright one on all counts. There is nothing to fear and nothing to worry about losing. I know many are frightened by the potential changes that could occur, but trust this when I say this. I've got you. Your relationship with me is what matters more than anything. When you are right with me, when you are aligned with me, and when you are doing as I suggest as your highest and best, you are taken care of and provided for in a way that most can't relate to yet at this time. The true trust in me doesn't exist yet in the way that will make the biggest impact for them. When surrendered to me, allowing me to work through them, there isn't any place purposeful that I couldn't take them with more ease. Struggle exists when someone can't surrender to me. That is where the true challenge lies. If you truly trusted me, what care in the world would be beyond my ability to fix it? The seventh seal, although this was a momentous occasion, many don't realize the significance of it. How could they? They only have the Bible to rely on and the writers' and readers' interpretation of what was shared. Please allow me to share this with you. The seventh seal was significant as the end of an era. It demonstrated the end of one era and the beginning of another. It was a timely matter set in stone by a course of events leading up to, as well as a desire to make significant change in the future. There are no headless horsemen running around at this time to frighten anyone. There is no anticipated destruction as predicted. When one sees the future, they are seeing it from the timeline from within which they stand. In standing there, they see what is possible from their vantage point and positioning. When timelines change, when the darkness is removed, and when society changes, everything changes. Nothing is written in stone without my hand in it. At this juncture, my hand was in it. Up until that time, it was everyone's interpretation of what they felt could or would be the facts. Nothing is fact until I put my stamp on it. And even in that case, there could be alterations as new discoveries are made and opportunity and situations evolve. Remember, this is a planet of evolution. Many don't want to evolve out of things written thousands of years ago. They prefer that past being proven rather than what I could provide that might be a better outcome. Some would actually prefer destruction just to prove they are right, or their interpretation of conviction of the Bible being right, than having a more gentle and positive outcome that serves all. So in light of that, for those of you who would prefer to have a new beginning and wish to embrace love, unless and until people return to love, they will be lost. They wander, look outside of themselves, seek answers from others, and blame themselves or others. But the answer is love. The answer to everything is love. Seek the love within and share it with others. Until love is experienced, there will be lack. In love, there is fullness and all there is. Without love, you seek and experience lack. That, my dear friends, is all you need. All you need is love. Be of love and you will have heaven on earth. Love is at the essence of all that is. It is the unexplainable. It is everything and it is nothing. People often get confused from romantic love and a feeling, but it is more as well as less than a feeling. It is a state of consciousness. It is a level at which one operates. So here we are at a momentous occasion, the ascension. We've had other days of ascension and people have been ascending on and off for a while now. But God said years ago that this was going to be a day of ascension. So this is a momentous occasion, long awaited. This is the beginning for all. Many more are ascending than first thought. Those are now ascending are bringing forth others as their light is increasing on the planet, making it easier for all to ascend. So with that, I'm going to give you my tip of the day, which is something that Michael said years ago. Play brings prosperity. The more you can play, the more you can lighten up, the more you can lift up. And on that note, also, God wanted me to share something with you. And this was just my closing slide. And I can get off of the slides and return to the regular screen. Okay, so I'm back with you. So give me a moment and I will bring in what God's message is for you tonight. Dearest ones, you have all gathered here tonight in my light, and I bring forward my light to you, lifting you all up, opening my heart, embracing you, bringing you forward home to me. As of this day, March 30th, 2021, you are here by all ascending. And so it is. I love you all. I open my hearts truly to you. I invite you to check in with me daily, moment by moment. You are not to walk this path alone. I am here with you as I've always been here with you. But there has been so much darkness blocking our connection. You would be amazed. What has been put in place as barriers has kept us apart far too long. Those barriers this day have been removed. Trust that I am with you. Trust that you are not alone. And trust there is always a solution. I love you dearly. Today is a new beginning. Walk with me softly. Trust that I've got you. And so it is. Peace, peace, peace.